Hello and welcome back to Switch and Lever. We're already in the Christmas season and slow by slow the big gift-giving day approaches. To celebrate the build-up, we're today making an advent calendar. Advent calendars started out as a quite religious thing, counting down the days to Christmas Eve with prayers written behind the calendar doors. It was only fairly recently where that got replaced with funny images and candy. Sweet, delicious candy. Today we're making the latter kind, but you're free to do however you want. First we start with designing the calendar in the computer. Start by finding a suitable image for the theme of calendar you're making. The more intricate and detailed, the more fun it will be trying to find the right door. Draw the doors out and add numbers 1 through 24. If you make the doors feel like a natural part of the image, it makes for a more interesting calendar in the end. You need to make 2 separate documents to print. One with the image you want for your calendar, together with all the numbers placed out, and one which has the outlines of all the 24 doors. Try to hide the numbers to make them harder and more fun to find. If you make the lines of the doors dotted, it will aid with perforation later on. Print these 2 documents separately, but on the same sized paper. Using blue tack, first put down the guide printout of the doors on top of the printed calendar image, matching up the edges as best you can. Make sure the orientation is correct so the doors end up in the right place. Since we're putting candy into this calendar, we need some depth to it as well. I'm using a piece of foam core to provide that depth, but you can use cardboard or other similarly soft but sturdy material instead. Next, take the 2 papers and blue tack them down on top of the foam core. The more accurate you are during this step, the better the result will be. Here comes the most tedious part of this project, the perforation. Grab a sewing needle or a pin and start by piercing the perforation of the holes, about every millimeter or so, making a hole through all the sheets of paper and down into the foam core. You could use the aid of a ruler to keep the perforation straight, or do it all freehand for a more artisanal perforation. Once you're done and your hand stops aching, you should have a perfectly perforated printout, with visible markings into the foam core for where to cut the holes. Throw away the guide paper, you don't really need it anymore. Also put aside the perforated printout for safekeeping, and get to cutting out all those holes. You will have to imagine where the 4th line goes, but that shouldn't really be too hard if you look at where the perforations go. If you want a thicker calendar than one layer foam core can provide, you can simply, after cutting out the holes, just transfer them with a pen onto another board and cut them out as well. Glue those layers together for a thicker calendar and thus a broader range of things you could stuff it with. In our case, 1 layer is enough. When all the holes have been cut out, break out the double-sided sticky tape and run it all around the perimeter and then in between all of the holes. You don't have to butt the tape up to the edge of the holes, but at least make sure you put a piece somewhere in between the holes so the top paper won't come loose and candy will spill out in between. If you can get a hold of a narrower double-sided sticky tape, it makes this process much easier. Once the next tedious task of removing all the backing is done, lay the printout down carefully and rub it down to stick. Make sure that it's oriented correctly so the perforated doors match up with the holes in the foam core. Finally, it's candy time! Turn the calendar over and start stuffing all those holes with candy pieces. I would stay away from things like wine gums or nuts as they may stain the paper, but chocolate and wrapped candies should be completely fine. You could choose to just put a single piece of candy behind each door, or you can do like me and stuff them to the brim. Just make sure that when you're done there is nothing sticking up above the surface of the foam core, as that will make closing up the back quite difficult. If you manage this step without eating all the candy yourself, you should go back to the double-sided sticky tape and seal up the back. You don't really need to be as careful as with the front, but it's still a good measure to put tape around the perimeter and some random pieces on the inside as well before applying the thin cardboard backing. To make the doors a little bit easier to open, you can also slightly score one corner of each door with a knife. Now it's just a matter of leaving it out for the small ones, or for those of us who are still a child at heart, to discover and to look for candy. While this is a simple candy calendar, there's nothing stopping you from getting even more creative with your own. How about a calendar with electronic components behind the doors, which you can assemble on Christmas Eve to an actual device? Or you can make one for Kwanza or anything else that you can imagine. Even a My Little Pony calendar if you so wish. While you're making artisanal perforations, be sure to follow Switch and Lever on Facebook and Instagram, and check out some of the previous videos as well. Until next time!